Hello, I'm Scott Thompson, and welcome to After 10. This year marks the 60th anniversary of the Korea-U.S. alliance. And to better promote cooperative relations moving forward, the two countries have established something called the Seoul-Washington Diplomat Exchange Program. On today's After 10, we are joined by Booyeon Lee Allen, a Korean-American diplomat who's been dispatched to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in Seoul. We'll hear more about the program and the efforts being made to promote cooperation between Korea and the United States.
Traditional diplomacy includes bilateral meetings of leaders and discussions over a variety of political, economic, and security issues. But recently, countries around the world have expanded the areas of diplomacy to include the spread of culture and the exchange of knowledge, to assisting in development and dispatching peacekeeping operations. The term public diplomacy was coined with a goal of winning the hearts and minds of the people. And new methods of public diplomacy have emerged. For the last 60 years, Korea and the U.S. have maintained a close relationship in a variety of areas, from the political and diplomatic to the economic and cultural. Now, the two nations are promoting public diplomacy to enhance the alliance. The Seoul-Washington Diplomat Exchange Program was started in 2011 as part of efforts to promote public diplomacy. Booyeon Lee Allen started working at the Public Diplomacy Division in Korea's Foreign Ministry in August as a U.S. State Department Diplomatic Exchange Fellow. Meet Booyeon Lee Allen, a Korean-American diplomat who has played a key role in promoting public diplomacy between Korea and the U.S.
Ms. Allen, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you are currently working at the Public Diplomacy Division in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in Korea under the Seoul-Washington Diplomat Exchange Program. Tell us what the Public Diplomacy Division does exactly.
Well, the Public Diplomacy Division sits under the ministry's Cultural Affairs Bureau, and it's charged with the great responsibility of making sure that foreigners have an accurate and deep understanding of Korea, from its thriving economy to its vibrant democracy, its ancient history, and high-tech modern society. And it does this by equipping the ministry's embassies with the necessary resources and expertise to tell Korea's story to the world. It also implements public diplomacy programs domestically, so that Koreans have a correct and accurate understanding of what public diplomacy is, and also to reach foreign audiences currently residing in Korea. Well, the Korean government has also reached out to partner countries such as Japan and China to have policy dialogues on public diplomacy. In doing so, Korea hopes to continue to win the trust of the international community by forging new friendships and building on old ones.
If we can look at something specific, I guess, that the division does, a program in particular that's helping to do that, what would you maybe point to as being an example?
Well, the ministry has done many different types of programs, but the one recently that I've been involved in is what's called a video contest, where foreigners who are encouraged to submit short 3-minute videos on why they love Korea, why they love Korean food in particular, and their favorite Korean friend. And I understand we got hundreds and hundreds of entries through the embassies across the world, and I was charged with judging about 60 of them. And when I viewed them, some of them actually moved me to tears. I'm not sure who the winner is yet, but I understand that the winner will get a Kia morning.
The ones that moved you to tears, I imagine, might have a leg up on the competition. What were some of the stories? You don't have to get into specifics necessarily, but what really touched you about their stories?
Well, for me, it's really the narrative. I really believe everything in the world boils down to narratives. Maybe it's because I was a journalist in training, but the stories where a foreigner was lost in Korea trying to find her way. One person went out of the way to try to make sure that this person could get to the place that they needed. They were touched, they said goodbye, never saw that person again, or never thought that they never would, but serendipitously met again and ended up becoming fast friends. Those types of stories really made me feel warm inside. And there were other stories as well from Turkey and to Australia, foreigners who, some of them had never been to Korea, but through generations of their grandparents who had served in the Korean War became pen pals with their grandchildren. Stories like that really moved me.
And this is all part of something called public diplomacy, of course, in the public diplomacy division. That's what you do. This term, though, public diplomacy, is not one that is all that familiar to people, I think.
Yeah.
You explained, I think, what the division does. What, in essence, is public diplomacy at its core?
Public diplomacy essentially uses what we call soft power. That's culture, sports, arts, music, to strengthen people-to-people ties between nations and moving even beyond the traditional method of government-to-government communication. It's essentially about people and shared experiences, and the result is increased mutual understanding among nations.
And your job there, what exactly are you doing on a day-to-day basis to help that process along?
I support this initiative, and I'm involved with many different types of projects where they need my help. But mainly over the course of the next year, what I would like to do is to build collaborative opportunities for the U.S. and Korea to share best practices in public diplomacy.
And you were dispatched to the division at the Foreign Ministry. Was there a specific reason as to why you were sent here?
Well, my predecessor was also dispatched to this particular division. And for me, I really was open to any division that they would put me in, but I understand that the ministry's leadership recommended that the second fellow also go into public diplomacy because it is an important and a new initiative. For me, I'm very happy to join this team because I am a public diplomacy officer by trade in the State Department, and I served in that capacity at the U.S. Embassy Seoul prior to joining this particular fellowship.
Now, under this division is something called the Seoul-Washington Diplomatic Exchange Program. What is it? What does it do? And what does it aim to do as well?
Well, it aims to deepen our relationship, essentially. So there are 5 of us now. The United States and Korea are in their 2nd and 3rd year of this fellowship, and there are 5 Korean and American diplomats who have gone through and are going through this program. We have all developed close ties of friendship with our counterparts that will help us tremendously in our professional careers. And with these connections that these 5 diplomats have made and our successors will make, the 2 governments truly believe that this will enable us to face any challenges that we have in the future and strengthen the partnership that we already have.
And I guess that would be the ultimate achievement that the program is hoping to accomplish, is to deepen that cooperation between the 2 countries, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're the first Korean American diplomat to work actually at the Korean Foreign Ministry. That must come with a lot of feelings, I would imagine. How do you feel being the first Korean American to do that?
It's a real honor, and it's truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I've enjoyed it very much so far.
And you've also made a lot of headlines, actually, as well, being the first Korean American to work in the Foreign Ministry. What does the U.S. State Department expect from you in your current position? And in turn, what does the Korean Foreign Ministry expect from you where you are right now?
Well, I think the State Department expects me to learn more about Korea and its policies within the ministry. And mostly to build short-term and long-term relationships with those who are in the ministry. This fellowship is founded on the basic principles of public diplomacy, in fact. The more you get to know someone, the more you communicate, the stronger the relationship becomes. So Korea and the United States are major partners, and there's no better way to get to know your partners than to walk in their shoes. So for me, going to work every day into the ministry, doing programs with my fellow Korean officers helps me establish just that.
And ultimately, with these relationships that are being forged, we mentioned that a better cooperative relationship is one of the goals, but ultimately, is there sort of a bigger goal down the line that both sides are hoping to accomplish? What is sort of the, I guess, ultimate goal in all of this?
Well, the ultimate goal is truly for a deeper, better understanding between the 2 countries. Public diplomacy is actually quite hard to measure quantitatively, and I believe that in this particular instance, with this fellowship, really it's about people-to-people connections that the officer actually makes within the ministry that's really going to pay off further down in their career. And for me, short-term, when I'm a political officer at the U.S. Embassy across the street, I'll know exactly who to contact and with what, and I'll know exactly how the ministry is structured so that I can have better understanding of how I can work with the ministry. In the same way, my counterpart who has served in the East Asia Pacific Bureau, the Public Diplomacy Division, my counterparts, the Korean officers who have served at Main State in Washington, D.C., also got a very wide and broad view of how we function in Washington, which will help them when they come here and they are working on similar issues in the future.
The Korea-U.S. relationship, of course, is a good relationship right now. However, we are talking about diplomacy, and there can be bumps in the road when we're talking about diplomacy. For instance, let's say that a diplomatic issue arises and the U.S. takes one position, Korea takes the other. There may be some people wondering out there which position you would take on the matter. How would you answer that?
You know, I wondered the same thing before joining the Foreign Service, but in actuality and in practice, foreign policy in this day and age is no longer a zero-sum game. So U.S.-Korea relations being as comprehensive, broad, and mature as it is, I really do believe that you can pursue a win-win in our overall policy. I'm just really honored to be working towards deepening this particular relationship between these two countries that I love so much. I truly believe that a strong U.S.-Korea alliance strengthens both countries.
And this year does mark the 60th anniversary of Korea-U.S. relations. We mentioned the special programs earlier for public diplomacy. What special programs are taking place right now to commemorate that 60th anniversary?
As you know, this year was a very special year for the relationship. The armistice that ended the Korean War, the U.S.-Korea Mutual Defense Treaty, the founding of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Korea, they all took place 60 years ago. So we kicked off this year with a joint logo contest between the ministry and the U.S. Embassy, sponsored this particular contest. And this logo was widely used throughout the year. Both countries hosted major events. And this included when President Park honored United Nations Korean War veterans on Korean Memorial Day in June. And this happened in the two national cemeteries in Seoul and Daejeon. Just this month, 6 former Korean ambassadors to the United States and 6 former U.S. ambassadors to Korea came together in a forum in Seoul where they had a candid dialogue on U.S.-Korea relations. And this was hosted by the Korea Foundation and the Center for Strategic International Studies. Also, Korea hosted a series of music concerts in Washington, LA, and New York. It really, truly has been a special 60th anniversary.
And we talked about the programs that are being promoted right now as far as the diplomat program. We've talked about some of the other programs as well. If we could talk about the programs right now that are being used to promote Korea-U.S. cooperation, what would some of those be?
Well, the U.S. and Korea already has a strong relationship apart from its public diplomacy programs. In fact, the Republic of Korea sends more students to the United States per capita than any other major economy, over 72,000 per year. Innovative exchange programs such as the WEST program, where young Koreans can find internship opportunities at U.S. firms, are also really great. Gilman scholars travel from the United States to learn about Korean culture and Korean language. And of course, the large Korean American community in the United States not only serves as a significant cross-link between the two countries, but also makes countless contributions to the strength and vitality of the American society.
And can you speak about some specific programs that maybe you've worked on personally that have resulted in some significant achievements in what you're talking about doing here?
One of my favorite programs that I worked on in Korea is the American Studies program. The U.S. Studies program is what we also call it. That is to promote American Studies as a curriculum at Korean universities. I majored in Japanese studies and international relations when I was at the University of Pennsylvania. It made me a lover of Japan. I learned the language, I went and studied abroad there, I eventually worked there for a few years and got to know the Japanese people and the nation fairly deeply. So we want to target these young people at a very critical point in their lives when they're not just looking at the United States and thinking Hollywood, but really studying the language and understanding the economy and the politics and history behind the United States. So that's U.S. studies. So in promoting that, I also thought what a great idea it would be to continue to promote Korean studies in the United States. And there are various programs that the ministry is running right now, along with the Ministry of Culture as well, to promote Korean studies and the Korean language in the United States, so that at a very impressionable age, the next generation of Americans will have studied Korean comprehensively, so that when these two generations sort of meet, when they grow up or when they start to really engage in each other's countries, that they'll have a better understanding of each other's culture.
Getting back to your story a moment, you're in your third year now working here in Seoul under the State Department from the U.S. It's actually rather difficult to be here as long as you've been here in your current job, but you've had an extension of sorts. Explain how that sort of transpired over the past couple of years.
Sure. I was first assigned to the U.S. Embassy Seoul as its regional program officer in the public affairs section. So basically, I was charged with doing public diplomacy programs outside of the capital in Korea's regional provinces. And I did that for 2 years. And when I was ready to move on to a different position, the department actually assigned me to this particular fellowship, which will then link me to a political job back at the U.S. Embassy from 2014 to 17. So all in all, I will have been in Korea for 6 consecutive years. Now, this is very rare in the State Department, back-to-back tours in any country for that matter. So I'm very fortunate that this was recommended to me, and then it was approved in all relevant offices within the State Department.
And you didn't always work for the U.S. State Department. You had a life before that. Tell us a little bit about what you did before you came to work for the U.S. State Department.
Sure. I was a journalist before. I was in print, so I worked as a metro reporter for the San Diego Union Tribune, a general assignments reporter for the Asahi Shimbun International Herald Tribune in Tokyo. I was a researcher also in Time Magazine, not in that order, but yes, I was very active in print media before joining the Foreign Service.
And how did your past experiences as a journalist translate into your current position as a diplomat?
As a journalist, you are sort of an expert observer, and you have to listen very actively, and you have to check your sources and make sure you have a primary source, not a secondary one. And those are all things that you have to do as a diplomat as well. You have to check your sources. You have to listen very actively. You have to make sure that you're listening, not passively thinking about the next question, but really listening to what the other person has to say and listen to them from their cultural background and context as well. So all of those skill sets have really helped me function as a diplomat.
And you did make the jump to the foreign services. How did that exactly happen?
Well, I began to think about who I wanted to be 10, 20 years from now. My dream as a child was to always become a journalist, and I had done that for nearly 10 years. I had gotten married, and I had some time to think about who I wanted to be in the future, now that I've really done what I've always wanted to do. And somebody asked me whether I would want to be my own boss, as in whether I want to look at all the bosses that I've served in the print industry and see whether I wanted that life. And to me, I really wanted to continue writing. I wanted to continue being a reporter. And around that time is when this particular opportunity with the Foreign Service was introduced to me through a friend. And looking into it, what I love the most is that you have an opportunity to become a recorder of history of sorts. And that's why I chose to become a journalist as well. So basically, a diplomat parachutes into unknown territories, meets these people that you've never met before, learns a foreign language, forges relationships with these people, and then report back to Washington accurate observations on what is going on the ground. And these reports, or what we call cables, eventually become a part of written history on foreign affairs. So to be sort of a recorder of history seemed really grand and wonderful to me, and also fulfill the kind of goals that I had as a journalist. So I believe that a journalist and diplomat, at their best, at their finest, are day recorders, are historical recorders of what is going on in the world. And in doing so, they help strengthen relationships between people, within communities, and across nations.
You're recording history now in your current position. People may be wondering where you will be going after this. What are your plans? What's the next step for you after you leave your post?
Well, the department decides that. For me, right now, I'm concentrating on being posted in the ministry, which is a great honor. And after that, I'll be serving for 3 years in the political section in the external unit. So I'm very much looking forward to that as well. So I am about halfway, a little less than halfway into my tour. So I'm enjoying myself very much.
And before we get too far down the road, I think we can focus on your current position right now and public diplomacy. What do you think is the best way right now to promote public diplomacy between the United States and Korea?
I believe the best public diplomacy programs help people not only understand each other better, but grow deep affection for each other. Now, when President Obama came to visit Korea last year, he used the word 정 to describe the relationship between Korea and the United States, a deep affection between two people or two countries that grow over a course of time. So we already have that, and that's a really good place to start. With U.S. public diplomacy programs currently being implemented in Korea, I hope that the next generation of Koreans come to see the United States as the equal partner that we are. And we try to achieve this through various different kinds of programs, including bringing Korean experts and American experts to the same roundtable so that they can discuss shared expertise from women's issues to entrepreneurship. The State Department also has ongoing youth and professional exchange programs, such as the International Visitor Leadership Program. The Fulbright program sends American scholars to Korea to gain expertise on Korean issues, and also sends teaching assistants to rural parts of Korea so that they can teach English to Korean students. So through these countless connections, I truly believe that the relationship will get deeper and stronger, even beyond the military alliance. Now, in turn, with Korean public diplomacy programs being implemented in the United States, I hope that Americans can walk down their neighborhood bookstore and one day be able to pick a whole line of books written by Korean authors, translated into English, or go to their school libraries for that matter, and come to know this country that's so far and yet so close. And I hope that they come to see Korea not just as a divided country or the home of the Korean wave, but understand and appreciate the creative and the rich traditions of Korea, and of course the modern miracle that Korea is, made by the will of the Korean people.
The future is bright.
Yes, indeed.
Booyeon Lee Allen, thank you very much for being on the show, sharing your insights. We surely appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
After 10 made its debut on November 2nd, 2012, and this Friday marks the one-year anniversary of the program. We've already been receiving lots of messages of encouragement and congratulations, and we encourage you to do the same. Please drop us a line and give us your opinion. That does it for today. We'll see you next time, After 10.